Hey everybody, happy Friday to you all. It's Severe Storm Filmer back with another weather forecast, and I am here to introduce, for one, a couple animated graphics here, two, to talk to you about the overall weather pattern. So let's dive right in without further ado. You're taking a look at the 500 millibar height anomalies here, and you can see we have continued ridge dominant over the eastern United States, and that's allowing for record-breaking high temperatures to be a thing. However, since this high pressure system is moving a bit further to the south and west, just a little tad bit today, we will likely see record-breaking temperatures in the deeper south regions as well. Not only that, but in the northeast, still continuing to see that. But we do have a trough axis here, so we will potentially have a chance for some severe weather along these boundaries here, so we're going to need to keep all eyes on that. Regardless, though, as we go into our Saturday the 22nd time frame, ridge dominant over pretty much all of the United States as the high pressure system really starts to sink down back to its home base, the Pacific Southwest, in other words. I wouldn't be surprised if we still had record-breaking high temperatures, though, because we're getting all this hot, dry air from Mexico in these areas. So it's not going to be nearly as humid, however, it will still be hot. So just be mindful of that. As we go into our Sunday the 23rd, which is my birthday, you can see we get a low pressure system to form out of Canada here, and that's likely going to prime the potential for some severe weather here in the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley here. Might even have the potential for a few squall lines that may develop, a squall line or two perhaps, since we have this kind of ring of fire pattern there. You saw that on the thumbnail, that ring of fire pattern really starts to make itself known, especially as we go into the middle to late part of next week, where that high pressure system is going to be near the Central Plains, and we're likely going to have storms going over the ridge a lot of the time. And that's likely going to allow for some more storm complexes to take shape here. And we might even potentially have a derecho. I think Wednesday I might be concerned about a derecho, especially in these areas. We might need to watch closely. Regardless, though, it is going to be very well stormy. And then as we go into our Thursday, the 27th time frame, we get a little bit of a cool down in the eastern United States. We'll likely have maybe a couple areas of severe weather over here in portions of Iowa and maybe down into the Illinois region there. But I think by the time we go into late week, into next weekend, I think our weather pattern will really quiet down. However, wait until this next shortwave comes in. This is positively tilted as of now. However, this will still prime a severe weather threat, possibly for the northern and central plains as we go into next weekend. Alright, now that we're done taking a look at the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, let's finally take a look at our surface precipitation trends here. You can see that high pressure system, that big blue and white H is on there to show you and represent the direction of the high pressure system. That is bringing in dry air from the Gulf, or drier air from Mexico. Instead of the Gulf of Mexico, it's coming from Mexico because it's a little bit further west. So we're likely, again, not going to have nearly as much heat and humidity here. So I don't think we're likely going to have nearly as much storm activity up here as we do today and the past couple days. So, I mean, that's good news. But as we go in towards Sunday the 23rd, my birthday, we will likely be dealing with severe weather over a great big portion of the Northeast and Ohio Valley and Great Lakes. Damaging winds is the primary threat. Like I said, this could potentially very well be a squall line. We're just going to have to wait and see how things play out on Sunday. As we go into our Monday the 24th, we get another storm system from Canada here, while we still have remnant moisture that develops and fires behind that low pressure system there. As that high pressure system is now all the way back into the Pacific Southwest. However, it is now producing a huge northwest flow. You can see it's producing a westerly or southerly to westerly flow, and then it drops down into a northwest flow. All right, so this is quite concerning, especially for middle to late next week, like I said. And there it is. Thunderstorms fire along that boundary very much so. And this could potentially be some sort of fall-like frontal boundary with some pretty cool air tapping in behind that. I forgot to mention that as well. We're likely going to have that low pressure system there. But like I said, Wednesday's threat could potentially be in the form of an outbreak. So we're going to need to watch that closely, especially across these regions right here. Again, Wednesday could very well be a severe weather outbreak in maybe the form of a derecho. We're going to have to see what happens. Regardless, as we go into late next week, things become uncertain. However, all things say we might get a little bit of a low pressure system there and maybe some more strong to severe storms in the northern plains. And then as we go into next weekend, we get pretty quiet. But down here in the tropics, we may need to watch a little bit of a system. And finally, let's take a look at our surface temperatures across the United States today. A lot of 80s and 90s across a broad portion of the eastern United States. We're getting a little bit of a cool down up here in the upper northeast there. Temperatures upwards of high temperatures in the 70s there. As we go into tomorrow, we're seeing mid-90s again across this region. Again, we're getting that recharged area of hot air from Mexico. Again, it is drier, so you'll likely not have as much humidity. However, the heat is really going to be a problem for areas of the Ohio Valley and in the Deep South through the day on Saturday. And as we go into Sunday, look at this. We could be breaking records for low temperature highs, guys. I mean, like a low temperature of 80 degrees here in Indiana, low temperatures of mid-80s here in portions of Maryland. And you can see over here we might have some record-breaking low temperatures over here in Oklahoma, as well as Arizona over here, where we have lows in the low 90s. That probably sounds a little hard to believe, but yes, we are breaking records down there in Arizona for low temperatures, as well as over here in the deeper south. So that's definitely significant here. What I'm circling is a really big chunk of the southern and eastern United States with temperatures in the 90s as we go into Sunday, the 23rd time frame. If you are north of the line here, you are likely going to have some relief, and that is pretty much for all of the northern United States there. I really think it's going to be feeling like fall behind that cold front, especially in areas of these areas. It's really going to feel great when you go outside there. Trust me when I say that. It might not seem like it right now, but it is going to feel very refreshing. What I'm circling on my screen is Monday the 24th high temperatures. We could potentially reach 100 degrees here in portions of Canada and Oklahoma, maybe even down here in the Gulf of Mexico, where it is showing some 100-degree temperatures. Of course, in the Pacific Southwest, where that high pressure is, that is going to be evident as well. And then as we go into Tuesday the 25th, we're seeing a lot of widespread 90s, even mid-hundreds across some areas, and that's mainly in the Four Corners region, in the southeast, and in the southwest. I also see some 100 degrees, maybe 101 degree temperature right there in portions of Kansas and Oklahoma. So that's a little hot there. We could get some humidity because of that high pressure. It could be yanking up some moisture there from the Pacific. Anyways, going into Wednesday the 26th, like I said, we get a really potent frontal boundary to start making its way down here. And like I said, severe weather outbreak not out of the question for the Ohio Valley there. Maybe in the form of a derecho or squall line, by the way. But let's take a look at surface temperatures for that day. Pretty much everywhere is in the 80s to the 105 degree range, all right? And I see a couple 109, 110 degrees down here in portions of the Death Valley region and Arizona. That's not a really big surprise, but look at these triple digits firing off over here in the southeast. Like, that's South Carolina, North Carolina region. You are going to be sweltering in the heat, man. Womp womp if you live there. And as we go in towards Thursday the 27th, pretty big cool down expected up here. Again, like I said, it's going to feel very good after the heat passes here and the storms. And as we look down here in the deeper south, we're seeing a lot less coverage of 90 to 100 degree temperatures. That is because our heat wave is going to be pushed away by that cool down, or that cold front, in other words, that is going to be coming out from Canada there. But it doesn't last long, as there's another surge of hot weather that is likely going to be coming to the eastern United States in the coming days. So we are not out of the woods yet, folks. Don't worry. It's still summer. It's definitely not fall yet. Though it might feel like it sometime next week in some places, it is definitely not fall. What I'm circling on my screen is the potential next heat wave we could get here, and this could potentially be a bit more intense or the same intensity as this one in the United States right now, and this would likely arrive in the first week of July here. As you can see, by the time we go into July 1st, highs back in the 90s for a very big chunk of the Ohio Valley down into the southern United States. We'll keep you updated on the temperatures in the coming days. All right, folks, now we got to take a look at the short term now that we're done taking a look at the long term here. We'll take a look at the tropics long term in a second, but we got to take a look at our severe weather threats across the country. This afternoon, we have a pretty big area of thunderstorms that we're going to be watching. Any of these storms could be on the strong to severe side, especially over here in the higher plains and over here in the Midwest region. We could also see some stronger storms producing wind damage in here in the Great Lakes region. And as we go into tomorrow, we get another round of severe weather in portions of Iowa and Wisconsin, and we get this rain up here. This could potentially pose a threat for flooding because of how slow moving and high coverage it is. We could also see some severe weather down here in isolated fashion down there in Florida. Then as we go into Sunday the 23rd, that system really starts to get going there, and we start to rev up a skinny line of thunderstorms this model likes to put out. But we are hours out from this, and we are a couple days out from this, so things will likely change. Plus, we will likely swing in another round of cooler air as we go into the middle of the week. Now, here's a look at Storm Prediction Center's outlook for today across the country. Big slight risk for scattered severe storms across a big chunk of the Pacific Northwest, Montana, getting down into the high plains and over into parts of the Midwest. We also have another marginal risk for a stationary frontal boundary that's going to be stalling out on Lake Erie, Lake Ontario. That will likely pose a threat for mainly isolated wind gusts and wind damage there. And we also have a slight risk down here in the Pacific Northwest, as well as a big marginal risk encompassing that. Our tornado threat is a bit higher than it has been the past couple days, where we have two areas of a 5% area. This is a 2 out of 5 scale for seeing a tornado. Remember, if a tornado warning comes out, get to your safety place. Stay away from windows and stuff. And over here in the western United States, we also have an isolated 2% risk for tornadoes there as well. Not a very big risk in the western United States, but it is worth watching, especially in the plain states. Now, here's the wind threat for today, and we have pretty much a slight risk wind-driven threat here pretty much for all of the United States, and all of these areas are potentially driven by this damaging wind risk. And lastly, here's the hail threat. We have the potential for 2-inch hail or larger in diameter here in portions of central Montana into southern Montana there. We also have a separate 15% area. This marginal risk is very much driven by a wind and hail risk, as well as perhaps a 2% tornado risk up here in the Midwest. All right, folks, now it is time to take a look at the tropics. First, taking a look at the European model. European model guide, it shows a little bit of little tropical moisture trying to make contact with the Atlantic Ocean there. We also have this wave right here as well, so we're going to need to monitor that over the next couple days. But the European model doesn't really do much with the storm system. However, it does sort of deepen it into some sort of little maybe depression over here. Other than that, I really don't see anything with that storm system. But here comes this batch of moisture, and this batch of moisture is moving all in towards Florida, and it's going to scream in there as we go into late next week. And when that happens, we will potentially get some sort of development just off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina. And how much that deepens is very uncertain. However, this European model is definitely hinting that we could get at least some sort of tropical disturbance in next week. And lastly, we're going to take a look at the GFS model and see how much it compares to the European model. And it definitely forms a little bit of moisture out here offshore, but it doesn't really show as much moisture leading into Florida, and more so takes it out to sea. So we do need to keep an eye on the modeling. However, the National Hurricane Center does hint that we could definitely have something here because the European model tends to be more accurate with tropical systems, definitely, rather than the GFS. But the GFS sometimes in short term is correct about some stuff here, but if you go all the way 240 hours out, you really aren't going to get anything from really what this is saying here. So all I could say is, guys, that the European model could potentially be right about something developing offshore of the southeast. However, the GFS does not show it, so I can't really conclude that right now. So folks, because of that, I'm going to show you what the professionals think down there at the National Hurricane Center. They are thinking a 40 to 60% chance of development just off the coast of Georgia and Florida, perhaps into southern South Carolina. And we also have an area here in the Gulf of Mexico I also wanted to point out there as well in the next 7 days. All right, folks, thank you so much for joining me on this weather forecast. Hope you liked it. Make sure you like and subscribe if you not already. Have a great rest of your day.